Bookmas book lovers, it is G-Swizz here, and I am here today with day number 12 of Bookmas! You might be wondering, G-Swizzle, why the heck are you wearing a jacket? Aren't you baking in this room? It's summer, right? Well, the weather decided to drop 20 degrees overnight, so I am loving this! This also explains why there's so many shadows in my lighting, cause outside there's barely any lighting coming in, so yeah. Today's challenge was originally to share your top 12 books of 2016, but I already made a list of 16 books I wanted to share that I loved in 2016. The reason being is because I know by the end of the year I will have read 140 books, and 16 is still a small fraction of that. This video may go long, it may be short, I don't know, just grab some popcorn, sit down, relax, and watch me talk about my top 16 favorite books of 2016. Interjection from the near future book lovers. So I filmed this video before I went on holiday. I think you can hear like the beach waves in the background because I'm in the Gold Coast, and yeah, what a holiday it has been. Number 16 that I originally picked for this list was a wild card, like I just picked it. It was an okay read for me. Now, I feel like I am going to replace that because I just finished a book today and I am just so mind blown from it, and I think that it totally deserves a spot on my list. I don't even know if it's number 16 or I don't know if it should go on further in the list, but all I know right now is that it totally deserves the spot over my original 16th on this list. It's not that I hate that series, but I love this book so much more. The Crowns Game by Evelyn Skye. If you didn't know, this is the Biblio Squad book pick of the month for December. I wasn't really expecting too much out of it because there are not too many December releases, so as a squad we literally just picked this because none of us read it yet and because everybody just keeps on hyping it up because of the amazing cover, and you know it's from HarperCollins, so of course there's a lot of publisher hype out there, but I haven't heard too many people read it. I didn't really have too many high expectations because it didn't sound like something I would really enjoy, but I really freaking loved it. This book made me question my loyalty a lot because I loved both characters. And in this world, there are two people competing to be the Imperial Chanter, and one of them has to die. And I didn't want any of them to die, and it was just so crazy. I would jump from one person to another until I just realized that it wasn't fair. And not only that, the writing in here is absolutely stunning. This is probably one of the best written YA novels I have read this year. And lastly, I want to point out that Evelyn Skye knows her Russian history. This book was so well done, and I honestly cannot believe that it was a debut novel because it was so good. Number 15 on this list, I will probably get hate for, considering that it's number 15 and not number 1 because everybody else is gonna have it as number 1 and the whole booktube community is going crazy over it. I'm just gonna get it over and done with. Akimov made it to spot number 15. Considering any of the books on my list made it, because I read like 140 books, that's actually a pretty big achievement. The reason why I didn't give this a higher spot was because I probably need to reread it because the whole time I was in denial that she was going to be ending up with Rhysand in this book, because when it comes to love triangles, and especially when the first book makes the first love interest a lot more promising, I usually get on board with that ship way too easily and I get too clingy, and reading this at first literally felt like I was getting a scab ripped off from my wound. It literally took me 500 pages in order to ship Rhysand. And not only that, there's a lot of sex in this book, and I can't handle too much sex in books. That probably explains why I don't read new adult. But I definitely absolutely love the new characters, and yes, I love Rhysand now. I hated him in ACOTAR. I mean, I know he had like a bigger part to the story, but I hated how he treated Feyre there. But this book was an explanation why. Oh my gosh, it actually matches my jacket. How crazy is that? This book made me want to be a part of the Night Court squad. That took me ages to get right. Squad goals, seriously. Coming in at number 14, we have The Last Star by Rick Yancey. There were a lot of mixed emotions and reviews on this book from a lot of reviewers or people that were just genuinely invested in the story, but I personally loved it, and I absolutely loved how this book was written in comparison to his other books in the series. What I love about this book is that Rick Yancey takes something so dark and so cruel and turns it into something amazing. My book hangover from this book was so crazy. I remember starting The Infinite Sea and I couldn't put The Infinite Sea and The Last Star down. Like, I read them back to back and I was absolutely obsessed with Rick Yancey's writing, and yes, I will be picking up more of his books in the future, guys. And that's coming from somebody who didn't originally like The Fifth Wave. Coming in at spot 13, we have The Darkest Minds trilogy by Alexandra Bracken. When I originally started this book, I didn't really think that it was something special until I got closer to the end, and I'm just like, whoa. I must keep reading. I kept reading and I freaking loved the rest of the series. If you're looking for a dystopian that's very sci-fi heavy and has kids with super abilities, I would highly recommend this series. I love Liam, and I love Ruby, and I love Chubbs. I freaking love them all, guys, and I kind of want to reread this series. I just need more of them in my life. Seriously. Coming in at spot number 12 is the only contemporary I have on this list. It is The Things I Didn't Say by Kylie Vernazier. After reading this book, I promised myself that this was going to make it to my favorites list because I absolutely adored it. I loved the subject matter and I loved the way it was written so much. And overall, it was absolutely so fun to read. After this book, Kylie Vernazier has instantly become an autobiographer for me. I need to read her other book, which is called Masquerade, which is completely different from this, but I just need more of her writing in my system. Like, yes please, thank you. Coming in at spot number 11, we have Groot. From authors that I totally forgot. I should remember this, guys. It's like one of my favorite comics ever now. Pretty much, it's a standalone comic about Groot, and it shares his backstory and what he's doing without the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it just follows him and Rocket. It was honestly just so amazing. First of all, the art style was incredible. Second of all, Groot's backstory was done so well. Honestly, if you're looking to get into comics and you do not know where to start, this comic is for you. It's just a standalone one, but it is just done so well. I highly recommend it. Coming in at spot number 10, we have Hawkeye by Matt Fraction. This is a 4-volume comic book series, and it is just amazing. This is also a great series if you haven't gotten into comics yet, and if you're wanting to get into comics, because honestly, you can just start from this and not be too confused because it is honestly so funny and so great. It follows the two Hawkeyes who are Clint Barton and Kate Bishop, and I just freaking love them both. And even though I don't think we're ever gonna get a standalone Hawkeye movie, this is a perfect standalone Hawkeye comic, and it makes you wish that there was a standalone Hawkeye movie because it's so good. Hawkeye by Matt Fraction was a standout this year. I highly recommend it. Coming in at spot number 9, we have Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. This was one of the first graphic novels that I read this year, and I was just freaking obsessed with it. The art style, first of all, is absolutely amazing. The dialogue is so witty and snarky, and the characters are just so hilarious, including Nimona. I honestly do not know why I don't have a physical copy. I honestly just want Nimona, and also I want a sequel, but there's no like planned sequel, but I want more of Nimona in my life. Coming in at spot number 8, we have the Shatter Me trilogy by Tahara Mafi. Funny thing is, yes, this is a dystopian series, but its main focus is the romance. And usually I don't like it when it heavily focuses on the romance, but for some reason I couldn't help but falling in love with this series. At the time I was reading this series, I was going through Bell's palsy, and it was actually a very hard time, but I felt like I was investing in these characters' lives, and I just forgot about the hardship of my own. And honestly, it just helped me get through it. I do recommend this trilogy, but I recommend you go into it knowing that it's pretty heavy on the romance, but then the dystopian elements are kind of a bonus, and that's what I actually really liked about this. The dystopian elements were good, but also worn out. Coming in at spot number 7, we have Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the original screenplay by J.K. Rowling. And do not ask me if I've watched the movie yet, because I haven't. And I call myself a Potterhead, like what the heck. The reason why I'm separating this from the Harry Potter series is because it is very different. In fact, this only became canon this year, just like you should separate The Cursed Child from the Harry Potter series, because everybody keeps on saying it's Harry Potter number 8, and I refuse to accept that. But unlike The Cursed Child, this was not problematic at all. It was literally everything. I want Newt Scamander in my life, I want a Niffler, and I must have a Jacob as well, because Jacob is awesome. Coming in at number 6, we have Gemini by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This book took me by surprise. I read Illuminate last year and even this year, and I felt like it was just okay to me, like I liked it, but it wasn't really anything too spectacular. But this one, all the plot twists and how much I connected with the characters and like, you know, Team Ella for life, man. I freaking loved it. Can't get over how much this book has damaged me in a way. It was beautiful, but like, Spot number 5 goes to The Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo, which consists of Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. People told me that it is possible to like this series and just find the Grisha trilogy to be okay. I read the Grisha trilogy earlier this year and I just found it to be okay, like it was kind of a basic fantasy series to me. And then when I read this, I was just like, Bae. This duology is so beautiful. I love the characters so much. I feel like I really did identify with both Inej and Nina. One is a person of color and the other kind of struggles with their body shape. I am just obsessed with every single one of the characters in this series, and this book broke me. And I do have to admit, I didn't like the second book as much as I liked the first book, but overall, this duology is so great, and if you have been putting it off, stop putting it off. Read it. It is amazing. You will not regret it. Seriously. Coming in at 4th place, we have the Heroes of Olympus series and The Trials of Apollo by Rick Riordan. I'm counting these in the same category because this kind of makes a connection to this series, and it's just honestly so great, like it's everything. I read this series after I read The Last Star, which I had a massive hangover after, and again, I was struggling with Bell's palsy, and it was just really difficult to not focus on my current situation, but I really felt like with this series, I just took my eyes off of my current situation. I took my eyes off what was going on around me and how I was feeling, and all of my emotion went into these characters. I know this sounds very cheesy, but this series was actually a light in the darkness for me. I honestly felt so much for these characters and I connected with them so much, and I'm kind of sad that it is over. I'm just waiting for the next Trials of Apollo book. I honestly just cannot wait for that. Leo Valadez is my new bae. Like, he is just everything to me. And also Frank. I'm in love with Frank, guys. Coming in at spot number 3, this is actually really funny because I couldn't decide which book from this author I was going to pick, but I just decided to go with all of them. Just every book that I read in the Shadowhunter universe this year. I read these 2 novella collections, The Bane Chronicles and Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, and then I read Lady Midnight. I mean, The Bane Chronicles was cool, but I honestly cannot decide between Lady Midnight and Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. Like, I cannot decide which one I like better. As much as I love these new characters, I was just so happy that we got to spend time with Simon again, but then at the same time, like, I just love these new characters. I honestly could not decide. Cassandra Clare has stepped up her game in writing. I'm obsessed with her new content. I loved her content before, but like after the Infernal Devices, I couldn't go back, and now I'm obsessed with anything she writes. Coming in at spot number 2, we have Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas. I need a moment of silence for a second, guys. If you want to know, I actually filmed myself crying on camera like the day that I read this. It's been 8 hours since I finished Empire of Storms. And I'm a freaking mess. And this book still gives me the same emotions because I loved it so much. I spent so much time anticipating for this book because I only got into the Throne of Glass series last year in the lead up to Queen of Shadows. Through this book, I made so many friendships, so many connections. I honestly could not believe how much this book has done for me. But not only that, I'm just so attached to the characters right now, and I'm in love with this world. And I know this sounds cheesy, but especially after what happened in here, Aelin is my hero, and Manon is my queen, and Aedion is my annoying cousin. This book was one of the most influential books in my life this year. I honestly do not have any coherent thoughts. And yes, this book does have some flaws, but honestly, I cannot thank Sarah J. Maas enough. This book gave me a bigger platform this year. This was the first book we read as the Biblio Squad. This was the first book I ever did my first live shows on. This is the book that I made so many friendships over. And this footage is going forever because I'm just thinking about how much this book has done for me, but yeah, I'm probably gonna stop. And we've come to spot number 1. People would probably shoot me if this wasn't number 1 on my list, considering that I read it this year. It is books 2 to 7 of the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. The reason why I'm not including book number 1 is because I read it the end of last year. 2016 was the year I was no longer living under a rock. I'm so happy I read this series this year, guys. If you're wondering what my favorite book in the series is, it would be Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. This was the first book in the series that I actually cried, and it was actually the quickest read in the series. This literally took me like 1 or 2 days to read. And it's like the first chunky book in the series. It's like 600 pages or something. That's crazy. But I am absolutely in love with this book, and I love this series so much, and I'm so happy that I read it this year. Finally, it is crossed off my bucket bucket list. So that is going to be it for this video today, book lovers, and that is going to be it for Bookmas. I'm honestly going to miss doing this. Follow me on my social medias. I'm at G-Swizzelbooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also at Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/G-Swizzle. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.